Hey everybody, another movie review. This time we have Guardians of the Galaxy from 2014, directed by James Gunn, screenplay by James Gunn and Nicole Perlman, starring Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, and Lee Pace. Basically, the premise is we mostly follow around Peter Quill. Peter Quill was a young man who was abducted as a child from the Earth back in the late 80s. And he grew up in outer space and he grew up to be this kind of lovable rogue, outlaw type character nicknamed Star Lord. Basically, he is trying to get a hold of an artifact called the Orb. All he really knows is that a lot of people are after the Orb and it's worth a lot of money and he thinks he can sell it. Um, one person in particular that's after the orb is the main bad guy named Ronan the Accuser. Ronan the Accuser is a member of the Kree race, and basically he's this angry zealot guy who's upset because his people have signed a peace treaty with another planet called the Xandorians. Uh, Ronan is full of like hate and anger, and basically he's not down with it. He basically wants to destroy the Xandorians, and he thinks if he gets a hold of the orb, this will give him the power to do so. Now, one of the people that he's working with are the daughters, or a couple of people, I should say, daughters of another bad guy named Thanos. One of his daughters is a woman named Gamora. Gamora is supposedly an assassin in this movie, but she realizes that Ronan is just crazy and she really doesn't want to be part of any sort of genocide or whatever. So she wants to get a hold of the orb, but she basically wants to double cross Ronan. We also meet Rocket Raccoon and Groot. Rocket Raccoon, of course, is a talking raccoon. Groot is a talking tree. There are a couple of bounty hunters. We meet them because they actually want to collect the bounty that's on Peter Quill's head. We also later meet a big tough guy named Drax. Drax is a person who has hatred for Ronan and Thanos because they are responsible for killing his wife and family. And basically, the whole point of the movie is watching how all these different characters who don't necessarily like each other in the beginning, how they learn to kind of work together to either avoid being captured, avoid being killed, try to keep the orb away from the other bad guys, and of course, they come together and save the universe and so on and so forth. Uh, I liked the movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was basically kind of a lighthearted romp. It's not too serious, and while there's drama there, not super melodramatic. I think there was a good balance between humor and action. I think the movie did a good job of establishing the different characters with their, very different personalities and making most of it plausible as far as, why people are doing one thing versus another thing, that type of thing. I thought the special effects were pretty good. There's not too much I saw that I thought was weak or cheap or everything looked, for the most part, everything looked pretty good. There's some places where you go, all right, cheesy CGI, but that almost comes with the territory. Just how modern audiences are just so knowledgeable about CGI and just know when something looks like it's CGI, I guess, for lack of a better word. Let's see here. One thing I think was interesting that they were able to pull off that I was actually kind of skeptical about going into the movie was how they actually made the Rocket character and the Groot character actual personalities that you actually cared about. A lot of times in movies like this, there'll be characters thrown in to be the comedy relief. And while they're supposed to be funny and humorous, a lot of times these characters just end up being annoying because all their whole purpose is to deliver one-liners and be funny, and that's it. But like I said, they actually did a good job of again, going back to the special effects, looking at these characters. They worked visually, and the voice actors, Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel, whose only line is basically "I am Groot," actually got a certain amount of emotion out of those characters. Speaking of which, I think one reason the movie was a big hit when it was released, this film had a lot of heart. I'm not really giving anything away. One of the major through lines of it is Star Lord's kind of a jerk, kind of a pseudo con man. I don't know if that's the right word. He's obviously starts the movie just being kind of selfish and out for himself, but we also learn that he's got this other kind of vulnerable side to him, because one of the things he carries around with him throughout the movie is this Walkman that his mother gave him before she died, that has all these old hit songs, these old pop songs from the 70s. And I thought that was really interesting. It actually helped give the movie a certain amount of, like I said, heart and warmth and, I guess, sentimentality that you don't normally get out of a lot of these type of films. Let's see here. Oh, a couple of interesting things I wanted to bring up. When this movie was announced, a lot of people in the comic book community, really were upset because, a lot of folks were like, "Oh, I can't believe they're doing a movie about a talking raccoon and not my favorite character." As if there was something, I don't know, beyond the pale about doing a movie about a talking raccoon. But you have to remember, Hollywood executives don't really vet these things according to what comic book is selling the best in the comic book stores, or what characters have been around the longest. They're looking at how they're going to make their money back and so on and so forth. And of course, they're not always right about that. But, doing a movie about silly cartoon characters is not that big of a I don't want to say it isn't big of a risk, but it's like this: the general audience will go see Ratatouille, about a rat who wants to be a chef. They'll go see Angela Lansbury, an award-winning actress, be a singing teacup. They'll go see Mike Myers and Eddie Murphy be a donkey and an ogre, prancing about fairy tale land. They'll go see SpongeBob SquarePants. You know what I mean? So the general audience really doesn't have that same sort of hang up about seeing something cartoony or silly or funny that I think that some of us in the comic book community do. Because we want to see Moon Knight, or we want to see Doom Patrol or whatever. The audience just really isn't looking for that. They're just looking for whatever is going to entertain them. They're willing to just kind of let stuff go if they know that it's not supposed to be taken 100% seriously. Another thing I thought was kind of interesting, looking at the end credits, it says based on Guardians of the Galaxy by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. And this movie was based on the early 2000s version of the comic book. And what I thought was interesting about that is that version of the comic book, it actually pulled together several different characters and ideas and concepts from a half a dozen other old comic books. You know what I mean? So, Star-Lord had several tryouts back in the late 70s, early 80s. Rocket Raccoon is a spin-off of a character that appeared in Hulk. Gamora was a supporting character from from the Warlock comic back in the 70s. Same with Drax. Actually, I think Drax was from Captain Marvel. Ronan being an old Fantastic Four villain. There's a space station in the movie called Nowhere, and at the head of a giant space alien called Celestials. The Celestials are another Jack Kirby idea from the late 70s. I just thought it was interesting that you didn't see any credits that said, Rocket Raccoon created by Bill Mantlo, Groot created by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Star-Lord created by Steve Englehart, Gamora created by Jim Starlin, so on and so forth. I'm not 100% certain how that works as far as like the copyrights and who gets credit and who gets paid, even though their name isn't on the movie, and so on and so forth. But like I said, I just thought that was interesting, But I think that's pretty much all I had to say. Like I said, it's a very fun movie. It's quick. It's action-packed, but good special effects, decent acting, even though there's a lot of humor in it. Most of the actors played their roles straight, so you didn't see a lot of people sort of winking at the camera or anything like that. And like I said, a nice balance between humor and action and suspense. And this movie also has kind of a sentimental core to it as well. All right, so that's it. I got to thank you very much for listening, and you have a good day.